Hi, everybody. I recently told you about some child molesters I interviewed about how they pick victims and groom victims so that we could tell parents how to better protect their children. One of those molesters is serving 3 life terms plus 80 years and sent me a very lengthy letter about his mindset and how he picks a child and what parents should know. So he says, in part, in order to abuse a child, I first have to find a candidate. I have to manipulate the adults around us to believe that my being alone with that child is perfectly okay. Then I groom the child to understand it's okay for me to be alone with them. And then I have to isolate them from other people, both adults and children, because I need not to be interrupted. Finally, I must make sure the child will keep our secret, usually by guilt or threats, telling them they'll be in trouble, their family will be in trouble, or I will hurt them. But secrecy is my most powerful tool. He says, if I get caught and I don't get punished, I will do this over and over again. So he says, if you know someone who has been accused of being inappropriate around a child, keep that person away from children. If they still seek to be around children, you need to ask yourself why. He says, if I target your child, there is almost nothing you can do to stop me. I'm not talking about the snatch and grab pedophile that kidnaps your child. I'm the person you know, the person you trust. Remember the 3 things: isolate the child, make it okay with the child and the adults that I'm alone with the child, make sure the child will keep our secret. If I'm in your home, he says, I have already gotten past you and working with your child on being okay with me touching them appropriately in front of you, because this tells your child you approve of me touching them. The difference between appropriate and inappropriate is worked out later between me and your child. He says, are you noticing that you can't keep every single person completely within sight at all times? He says, that's right, but you know who can is your child. He says, it's important for children to know that they can tell an adult they don't want to be touched there. They don't like that. I want you to stop. He says, telling your children it's okay to tell an adult no is very important. They need to be comfortable with that idea that they are in charge of their bodies. He says, you can never know how it destroys a little bit of my soul that I know these things. And I'm so sorry that there's an need for something like this article that exists. He says, I'm sorry that the only way to stop a predator like me is to take away a small piece of your child's innocence and warn them about people like me, but it's the only way to keep people like me from stealing their innocence permanently. He says, you are not, as a parent, diligent enough to protect your children at all time. He says, I only needed 6 minutes while a mother was in a 7-Eleven buying a pack of cigarettes to rape and sodomize a 10-year-old girl who was in the car with me. He says, to my knowledge, she's never told anyone about that attack. 6 minutes. He says she is now a coke junkie in her late 20s, and in 6 minutes, he stole what can never give him back. Had she told me no, she may have had a loving family and a husband someday, but her mother had never told her it was okay to tell a grown-up no. He says, I have hundreds of stories like this, and I know 1,000 abusers in prison with me who have hundreds more stories like this. He says, it's important that you teach your children what appropriate touching is, who can be around them, and that they are in charge of their own bodies. That's a glimpse of his letter. Be safe out there.